So you've attended the Afros
Yes,
Audio
I
Podcast
did,
Festival.
as I have again.
Not only did you
Right
attend,
here.
you showed yes, but not only did you attend, you showed out with Vina and BMO and had a really, really great session. So can you share a standout moment for you or takeaway that impacted you?
I think honestly the whole conference, because this is my first time going. Last year I had wanted to go, but I think I was away or something, and I saw people in the area posting it, Vina being one of them, as I had known her personally. But then also I have not met this person yet, but the Booney Breakdown, I've been following her and I saw she was at it. So people I was familiar with were posting it, and I was like, oh my God, I have to be there in 2024. So I'd already marked it on my calendar. Then Vino, they asked me to speak, like, do you want to speak with me? And I was like, okay, sure. Like, what are we talking about? I really can talk about anything, so I don't care. Just sign me up for this. But I think going overall was really great for me because I've never been in a space where it's only podcasters. It's either I'm at a conference for educators, I'm at a conference for creatives, I'm doing a pop-up at some type of event, whether that's a conference or just a show or whatever it is. So to be somewhere that it was just podcasters, and I knew no one except for Vina, that for me was like great because I walked away with so many new connections, people that have been supportive now on social media. They're tuned into my podcast, I'm supporting them, and then we get to look forward to next year again, just coming back together. So the whole conference was amazing. I really did enjoy speaking as well because I think for hours we made it almost like you were watching our podcast live. And I have never met BMO before. That was the first time I've ever met him. And people were like, you never met before? Because we would never know based on the chemistry and how everything went. So it was a 10 out of 10 experience, and people need to be there next year.
I so appreciate that, and I appreciate the session. I've heard some really great things about it. So thank you again for your contribution and for your kind words. We definitely want more people to show up. Yeah, thank you. So is there anything else you want to share with the folks before we wrap up?
Just repeating that they need to be at Afros Audios, especially if you're a podcaster or even just aspiring, because I don't know of any local podcast conferences that are like this. I've seen some big ones that happen, but they don't, to me, seem like my target of where I would want to go, at least not now. So I think if you're just a small podcaster or new, aspiring, or even seasoned, come, because there's so many people that have different experience levels and they're all willing to talk and connect, which is the best part. Because you go to a conference and you're like, oh, like I got to force myself to talk to people. Are people going to be engaging? But if you put podcasters in a room, everybody's going to talk. So go to the conference for sure.
When Black folks start to feel the pressure of other people, we don't drop our Blackness. We run to each other. More community within each other and try to find safety with people who are like us within our Black experience. And I really feel like that's what's going to happen. We're talking about curated energies. Brother, when I came to the conference, the one session I was able to sit in, because we had to go to a memorial service after, but the one session I was able to sit in was the diasporic conversation. Man, how they spoke about diasporic podcasts and the audio experiences changed my perception on what we're actually doing here. So when I hear the Zimbabwean creator talk about, oh, in Zimbabwe, we're talking about Zimbabwean things. We're talking about the 27 languages that are in Zimbabwe. We're talking about the culture here. When I thought, oh, we're not all talking about Beyonce. We're not all talking about Cowboy Carter. Like, we're not all talking about Kamala Harris. No, we're all creating communities within each other. I'm not competing with every podcast listener. I'm not looking to make an audience with every podcast listener. I'm looking for my people. I'm going to find you in the crowd and be like, just like you said, hey, come here. Don't stop listening to Joe. Come over here. Come on.
So you mentioned that podcasting has helped you find communities and become a voice of reason and authority. Can you share a moment when this impact became clear to you?
Oh, the first one that comes to mind is 2019, somewhere around June, summertime. There was this fledgling group of podcasters that got together after a visionary. I'm joking. But really, though, like I said, I take risks and just jump out there to see what happens. So just trying to get my voice out there and become a part of a community. Afros and Audios was having their first conference. And at that point, I wasn't into podcasting enough to say I can go to a conference and speak. But just learning more about it, watching what y'all were doing on Instagram, and then just the interaction through email. Because when I got selected to speak, I was like, you sure you got the right person? Yeah, we like what you're saying. We like what you're doing. We appreciate. But you all helped me build my confidence. You all helped me expand my reach. So just taking a chance to be a part of a community that was growing, and we've grown together. And then that has created other opportunities where I've been on. I can't tell you how many podcasts I've been on. Small podcast conferences have come and gone. We have podcasting at the school district I work in, and I've been able to help grow that and make connections with. I was on a podcast with a producer to bring podcasters, people that are passionate about this thing, and put them in front of the next generation of podcasters and content creators to teach them how to do it, how to create reach. Taking a chance back in 2019, fast forward to early 2025, and good things are happening.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you letting me know that. And I've heard a lot of different people talk about how Afros Audio Conference was sometimes their first time speaking or taking a chance, especially in that particular medium, talking about that subject, and how much they've grown because of that opportunity and just being a part of our community. And you've always been someone since the beginning that I've always appreciated for, one, choosing us to be in community with. I'm super proud of you, man. I watch what you do. I see your leadership. I see the coaching and the wins and the podcasting, just continue to move that forward. So I'm proud to have you, man, really.
I appreciate that. It feels good to be part of a community that's doing good things.
I can tell you that when I came back, a couple of people, including some family members, asked me about it. And I'm going to be very upfront. I said, I have never been around, and I'm specifically talking about Afros and Audio podcasts. And I talked about both podcast movement, and I have nothing negative to say about podcast movement. But I've never been around more African-American people that had their act together and on the move ever in my life. And I was bubbling with that. I can't tell you even the after parties and, some of the vendors that you had there. I talked to as many people as I could about whatever they wanted to talk about, whatever they asked me to talk about. I'm lost for words, really, to tell you how meeting the people has influenced my decision moving forward with the Creators Toolkit. It's just, I'm lost for words, actually. I'm really lost for words because it was that good. And I'm looking forward to the next one in October.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's really meaningful that you say that because that's the point and purpose of it. And of course, you get out of anything what you put in. And I think I've told you this before, but your presence was very much appreciated and contribution to it as well. We show up for ourselves as much as we do for each other at Afros and Audio. So it wouldn't have been the same without you either, Daniel. So I really appreciate those words and the fact that you'll be back. That means a lot to me. So thank you.
2023, I said, I'm just going to do it. My uncle always says you need to have a couple used to's in your life. I used to do this. I used to do that. So I was like, I don't want to live a life of regret. So I reached out to someone who already had a podcast and they were kind of providing me with like consulting services in terms of launching my podcast. And that really gave me the confidence to pursue it. And the interesting thing is the person who was providing these consulting services, they said, once you start your podcast, there's two things you need to do. They say you need to join BPA and you need to go to Afros and Audio. And that was in September. And I will say both Afros and Audios and BPA have been extremely instrumental in my success. I have met so many people that helped me along my journey, but that's really what kind of sparked the interest. The seat was already there, and I just realized I just needed to go for it. So that's what inspired me to do it. Going back to Afros and Audios, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you, but just even going to the festival, I think has helped me just seeing that diversity of voices And that even helped me feel a lot more confident in my voice too, because it ranges the spectrum. You have people who may be blurs, like Black nerds, to people who may be really edgy, to people who are like in the middle with all these wide interests. And I didn't go to HBCU. I went to a predominantly white institution. So for me, I was like, this is probably what it would have been like to go to HBCU, where it's just like all of us are just together, focusing on the same goal, diverse interests. It felt like I could just relax. And each time I've gone to the festival, I feel like I've gotten a lot more comfortable with my voice, and I've networked with people outside the festival that have kind of helped me to craft that.
I do want to ask you about Afros and Audio really quickly. Your experience with the conference. You were at the 2019 conference, and you've been there throughout, whether you've physically been at the conference or simply in support of myself, which I've really needed and appreciate. But talk about Afros and Audio a little bit.
Yeah, yo. Afros and Audios is one of the places that I go to find, I guess, I don't want to be flowery, but family, fam, and like-minded people that are doing things in their community. Like, it always reminds me, like, yo, I'm just a look in the mirror away. Yo, y'all are really validating the things that I've been through, the things that I'm going through, and also giving me shit to think about every year. That I've been coming since 2019, and even when I can't make it, I'm there. I'll find my way. Somehow, I'll find my way on y'all live, or your social, or I'll just come down for a day. I might not could make all three, but I always am validated to be why I'm here, why I'm doing this. Afros and Audio does that for me. Also, the different levels of education, people that I've had as quote unquote students or mentees, they're leading conversations. And that shit is so exciting to me. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. Afros and Audio. So
yeah,
fuck with it happen.
And I'm going to say this, because we can be so in our own heads with so much of that creativity. And a lot of the roots of this, as I'm uplifting, start from people that were connected to broadcast or connected to music, which in both arcs, you can be in your own head big time too, but still have that willingness for creativity. I believe that this is a great time, and I'm almost beating myself up because this 2024 was my first year coming to the Afros and Audio conference, and Q was right. I was like, damn, I should have been here the whole time through. And I don't ever want to miss it again, because right now more than ever, I feel like people are not connecting to what I consider mainstream media. So they're looking for different outlets to interpret and grab on to things. So through Afros and Audio, it's a platform to connect with people across the nation that are telling these stories, to add more nuance, get more niche, get more information, where something like this can be larger.
To see something that I literally made up, that I just kind of pulled from my own interests and found this interesting marriage that merits this interesting conversation, and to see people receive that, that's amazing. Like, it's been the most amazing feeling. And I think probably the best I felt about it was probably at Afros and Audio. Just to come into this community of people whom I knew some, and like I left with so many more contacts, and to just have this really positive reception, and to feel seen, and to feel heard, and feel authentic and respected, and also just really grounding in my identity as a Black woman. That feeling's indescribable. Like, I can't think of any other time in my life when I've really gotten that kind of full circle positive feeling. And to know that it's coming from a lane I built for myself, it's just unreal. And if I can just hold on to that feeling as long as I can, then I'm going to ride that to the cows come home. Asking, like, are you going to Afros and Audio? You have to go. It's going to be such a good time. And once I won the award, I was like, oh, well, no, I have to go to Afros and Audio. So I guess I got to get to Baltimore. And of course, that then snowballed into what is the most wonderful, welcoming community I've ever experienced. And just the validation to know, like, you're doing something and your random little idea, it's a good idea, and other people think so.
You attended the Afros and Audio Podcast Festival this year. What was your experience? Tell me a little bit about how that experience impacted you.
I was blown away by the intentionality, especially of both of the locations. So I went to the community space, Motor House in Baltimore. I was just talking to some of the owners there, and they were saying it's a real community space for artists and creatives, and you could just feel it in the room. But then also at the museum, there happened to be that exhibit. I don't know if that's a newer exhibit. I think,
it is. They change it all the time.
The exhibit was basically about the history of Black people in media. So you walk in and like you're seeing Ida B. Wells, and it's just, I felt the spirit of the ancestors. Oh, okay. This is where I'm supposed to be. But I was so grateful. It was so affirming. A lot of the sessions, a lot of the things I had already done and figured out on my own. And I was like, oh, I thought I was just making up stuff. So that was beautiful. But then even beyond that, learning so much that I didn't know before, and then making connections. I was able to meet so many people. I met you, and so happy now that means that I am here on this podcast. Other podcasters that I've met, we've been sending each other things, and I've gotten other invites to be on their podcast as well. So just knowing, I didn't know that this community was here. I didn't even know how I found it. The ancestors dropped it to me and were like, go here, girl. And I'm in DC, so it was literally up the road. It was a beautiful opportunity to be in that community. Kudos to you for creating it. Your vulnerability and telling your story was affirming, and I knew that it was an aligned space. I can't wait to go back again and again. I will be there every year.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody, if you are in this space and you are about, that was something else actually that I appreciated. Again, there are varying types of podcasts. I really appreciated that it felt like everyone there was really about conscious content creating. Not that everything had to be super deep, but that it was for the betterment. Either it was joy, bringing lighthearted fun. Those are also for the betterment, but it wasn't like that toxicity in the air. I really appreciated seeing that as well.
It's very intentional, and it's always great to hear from people who get that and then are committed to contributing to spaces. You showing up. Meeting you on Friday night, I knew that you were in the right place, and I was too. So it's really great. I'm thankful and grateful that you chose to show up for yourself and for others, because that's what we do when we enter into spaces like Afros and Audio.
And I got to give you your flowers, because you are the first person, or Afros and Audio was the first place that made me start coming out to speak. Actually, that's when I started speaking through Afros and Audio. And if you recall, you had to kind of ask me, hey, are you coming? Are you doing this? Are you doing this?
We chased you down, brother.
Yes, I remember
you down.
I'm really appreciative for that, because if you would have said, you know what, this guy doesn't seem like he's interested, even though I was interested, I was just not really sure, but just going about it, there were so many things to get to that part that I wasn't so sure, and I wasn't like, okay, what am I doing? What do I want to do? And you really pushed and said, look, come on, let's do this. I really appreciate that, because when I look back, and I always give flowers for Afros and Audio because of that, y'all took a chance with me and gave me that opportunity, and look at where we are now. Yeah, thank you so much. You and your team, appreciate that 100%.
Thank you, man, and thank you for showing up, because you could have stayed under the rock. You didn't have to respond and come out. So we showed up for each other, and that's really the power of Afros and Audio, and what the work is that we're doing, is that we show up for ourselves and each other, because your presence there made a difference as well. So thank you. And I accept my flowers. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
I appreciate it.
Hold on. This is where I shout out Afros and Audios. Listen, people. Y'all listening? All right, I'm straightening my glasses. Okay. So 2024 was the first time that I had physically gone to an Afros and Audios convention. I think you guys did a virtual because of the pandemic. It was wild out in the streets and you couldn't do it. But I had always been meaning to go. Y'all, I went to Baltimore in 2024 and I said, I want to see people like me and people who know more than me and people who are trying to come up and figure out if they want to start. I want us all to be in the same room together. And let's see what that's like. I was not disappointed. The energy at that The best way I can describe it, and I'm being very truthful here, the best way I can describe it, folks, it felt safe. I know people know what I mean by that. It felt safe. I'm in this room with these creative, brilliant people, and they all have one objective, and that is not only to help each other, but to see how they can elevate their craft. It is a unforgettable experience. Now, I'm going to share a story, but I'm going to scrape out all of the identifying details. There was one attendee at the conference who shared an experience with the floor, and they were unsure about if it was even something worth sharing. And they wanted to know, this experience that I have, is this something that people would want to know more about in a podcast? When I tell you the amount of love and the amount of support that was the energy that was extended to that individual, because they were just like, I don't know, but they felt, again, safe enough to stand and say, this is my experience. I'm sharing it with you. And I don't know if the world will want to hear more about this. When I tell you how people in the audience, and these are people of means, connection, finances, resources, networking, contacted, plugged into different things. These are people that do things and know things, okay? When I tell you how people immediately stood up and said to the individual, I can help you. You need to see me. I can help you. You need to see me. There was someone on the stage that said, make sure you see A, B, and C. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about. You were there. I don't know if you were in the room.
I was in the room.
And that to me was the most beautiful. I said, oh, I'll be back. I'll be back. Because you could talk a thing and you can say a thing, but to actually see a thing happen in real time, unprompted, I won't forget that. That will stay with me for a long time. And I made my way over to said individual. I was like, is it okay? Can I give you a hug? I said, yeah. Gave the person a hug. And I said, now enough of the hugging. Make sure you get over A and B, because once everybody disperses, they're hard to identify because they're like in the group at large. But while they're in this staged room, make sure you get over there. And I will. Okay. That to me was beautiful. And I believe that I shared that on the platform, the Afros Audio's Black Podcasters platform. So people, that is what Afros and Audios does in terms of community. Y'all need to get into it. All the people that are watching this, y'all need to get in 2025.
Appreciate that.